Hi everyone. I've been meaning to discuss eugenics for a while now, especially because I literally know someone who asked the question, was it really so bad? Yes, you massive ass clown. I can honestly and without any hesitation, except for my mouth trying to catch up with my brain, as it does when I forget the word, when I can't quite speak the word that I want to say. Yes, you massive ass clown. Okay, so today we're talking about the history of eugenics. I've discussed this before, and the very popular movie from the 1930s, and it was a silent film using a real-life doctor named Dr. Harry Hazeldon, who actually was involved in a production talking about the choice that a mother had to make to keep her baby with hereditary syphilis alive or have mercy and send him to the great beyond, including having a terrible nightmare where she sees what future lays in wait for this child, including crime and drugs and drinking and just being friendless because he is an outsider. He has no worth, and the world shows it. And then, at the end, she makes the decision to have a mercy kill done. And they involve the image of Nordic Jesus. Not Jesus, but, you know, the popular conception of the white and pink and blonde Jesus, who basically stands near the person killing this child and takes the baby into his arms and yada yada bing bang bong. Now, Dr. Harry Hazeldon actually got arrested quite a few times for this type of behavior. Well, no duh, Harry, because it's wrong. And that wasn't the only case. We have all heard about Margaret Sanger, the cousin of the dude that did the Wonder Woman comics. Yes, it's true. They were actually cousins. And he had his own lifestyle that Margaret would definitely have disapproved of. He was married to two bisexual women. Not quite legally, but married to two bisexual women who they had families. When he died, the wives basically married each other, raised their families together. That was a short history of Wonder Woman, just because for some reason I thought of him as I was discussing Margaret Sanger because they were related. Speaking of relatives, how does genetic inheritance and one person with a bad habit and really, really terrible behavior affect other people in the family? Is it in the genes? Would this affect other people? Well, there was a case with a Dr. Mooney, not to be confused with Dr. John Money, of the, hey, I would like to test turning little boys into little girls. Here is this child that was terribly injured during a circumcision. Why don't we raise him as a girl? I will get into that someday. So anyway, I am wearing this because I want to show you just how freaky deaky I think this is. Because dudes, it is freaky deaky. It is wrong. It is horrendous. It is evil. But anyway. Okay, so Dr. Mooney is known as the father of special education. But he also studied inherited disorders in families where an ancestor who slept with the wrong person, even though he is a rich dude and typically behaves himself and is just, an avid churchgoer, all that other stuff, this being the 18th century, slept with a barmaid of low intelligence, and she had children who then kept going, having children with worse disabilities. Does it run in the genes? Well, disabilities can run in the genes. Different disorders can run in the genes, like diabetes type 2, for example, which I get tested for at least once a year to ensure that I'm okay. Because my father had type 2 diabetes, and I've had a few issues, such as kidney disease, so I get checked, and I make sure I'm okay. I mention this part because I'm actually in the middle of an essay discussing how type 2 diabetes and influenza A work, and what influenza A is, and what it does to your body, and how it attacks you are the subjects this week. So Mooney, he took in and imprisoned one of the great-great-grandchildren of this dude and this barmaid. Literally imprisoned her. Even after he died, she was stuck in an asylum until 1971, having been there for 40 years. And her name was Deborah. She actually didn't quite seem as bad as Dr. Mooney put her out to be. She could fit in, she could sew, she could write. She would write letters to Santa, and they were beautiful letters. A little bit simple for her age, but understandably, her home life wasn't as good. However, that would be alcoholism and the fact that these people were just kind of left alone by society, and they really didn't have anyone else, so language skills and everything else would fail. So Deborah people would mistake her for staff. There were guys who wanted to date her, wanted to marry her. Dr. Mooney and the nurses were like, no. Absolutely not. This would be a terrible idea. We don't want more of her around. Excuse you? So much for care and being there for your patient. Instead, you basically show that you quietly hate her. In other old but very, very scarily recent events, 3 generations of imbeciles is enough. This quote comes from Virginia and the Colony for Epileptics and the Feeble-Minded, which has closed, and Virginia has actually apologized for the long ago behaviors. And it regards the case of a young lady named Carrie Buck who was raped by the owner of a house that she was basically enslaved in by her foster parents after her mother was forcibly sterilized and sent to the Home for Epileptics and the Feeble-Minded. And of course, Carrie, after she has her baby, is forcibly sterilized, sent to the institution. The baby is given to the mother of the man who raped her foster mother. And the judge in the case that tried her and basically said, oh yeah, she needs to be sterilized. Her mother is awful, she's awful, she's probably given birth to another imbecile. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. What is an imbecile, you ask? Nowadays, it's a pretty mild insult. Sounds kind of fancy because, after all, it does come from the French, which then again comes from the Latin. The definition is informal. Imbecile, plural noun, imbeciles. It comes from the mid-16th century as an adjective in the sense of physically weak, via the French from Latin imbecilis, which literally means without a supporting staff, from in, which is a prefix regarding without, baculum, support or staff, or basically a cane. So basically it means without a stick to lean on. The current sense comes from early in the 19th century. So this is our Supreme Court. This is the way that we treated people who needed help and had been terribly hurt. And we're still seeing it. And people are celebrating right now because Britney Spears has finally had her father removed from her case, but she still seems like she is still being hurt, and that she still doesn't have her own voice, and like she is basically being controlled by someone else, and that's not okay. She has not really had her own life for 13 years and has been treated like absolute crap, has not had anyone helping her to come forth, to gain her confidence back, to learn how to help herself again. And now we see it, and it's like, ooh, is this the boyfriend? Is this someone working for Papa? What's going on here? Because this is gross. So, like Carrie Buck, like a lot of people who have been forced into care, who have been treated like so much crap by people who claimed that they cared, that they only wanted what was in their best interest. Also, I have to tell you this. One, imprisoning others, wrong. Two, I don't know about you, but to me, the phrase, "I'm only looking after your best interests," makes me want to vomit. So, this is where I am. I am talking about a young woman who is called Deborah Kallikak in a somewhat award-winning book by Dr. Mooney, the father of special education, who was a nasty man who imprisoned a child who died years later, still being forced to live in captivity and never really having her own life and never really being taught anything about helping her own self and how to be a survivor, how to be confident. This doesn't strike me as good. So there's my question, there's my answer. All of these people, from Hazeldon down to Mooney, were a bunch of ass clowns. I am aware that I am cussing. I have meaner things to say, but I think I would actually be censored if I were to say them. And I've been trying to cut down on my swearing because actually it's quite awful. So anyway, I love you all. Please be kind to each other. Eat well. Hydrate. If you feel sad, if you feel alone, please say something. Don't be afraid. And if people treat you like crap because you actually asked for help, they're the ass clowns, not you. And you are so loved. That's the wrong side, but here we are. Love you very much.